Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a fiscal conservative and someone who believes in limited markets, limited government, free markets, individual liberties, I struggle with what the role of the federal government truly is when it comes to things like broadband and connectivity and a lot of the government programs that we are looking at cutting budgets for, because at the end of the day, government cannot be all things to all people, and it cannot afford to provide all things to all people when we're $32 trillion in debt. We just cannot continue to spend money willy-nilly in this nation to provide everything that everyone wants. Now, having said that, I'm a big fan of rural broadband and the need for access. I saw it during the pandemic in small communities in my district where Wi-Fi buses had to show up in certain areas, and parents would bring their children in close proximity to that bus so they could have access to Wi-Fi in order to do their schoolwork because they weren't in the classroom. And the only way they were going to get education is at that point, online. So there was a need, and it was satisfied with the Wi-Fi buses. So I do understand in a rural area of the 3rd Congressional District of South Carolina that we need more rural broadband. But I also saw private industries like Western Carolina Telephone that actually invested in fiber optic in rural areas of McCormick, South Carolina. 90% of the county is owned by the federal government. It's federal land. They don't have a tax base. Abbeville County, South Carolina, same thing. It's not federal land, but a very low tax base, small population, rural area. So, I do think most areas in cities like Denver probably have some sort of access to broadband. Now, whether those consumers actually can afford to have broadband or have internet access in their home or choose to spend their money to access that internet for entertainment or educational purposes or business purposes, I understand that. But my concern is how the money that the federal government has allocated, it's already been allocated, is being spent. So I'm concerned that tens of billions of dollars have been allocated over the past few years to extend broadband services, and I'm concerned that it will end up being wasted instead of used appropriately. Ronald Reagan once wisely said the closest thing to eternal life here on earth is a government program. So there should be sunset dates for these. We should have guardrails and accountability, oversight. That's a congressional role. And I'm going to approach it from a limited government standpoint. There's a role for the free market. If you see the need for a service and you provide the service and get paid for that, that's how market economies work. So I go back to what is the role of government, and I'll end with that. Dr. Ford, I'm concerned that if we invest in the wrong technology, we'll constantly be chasing the latest, soon-to-be obsolete technology rather than making a lasting impact. So, putting fiber optic in the ground seems to make sense because it has the capacity to meet the changing technologies, whatever they may be going forward. And what we bought for this money, and shouldn't we build to last technologies that can adapt to improvement? The fiber optic in the ground is primarily what I'm thinking about. Dr. Ford?
It's possibly, we talk a lot about fiber being future-proof, but what if in 10 years the wireless networks are so advanced nobody wants a home connection anymore? How many home phone calls do you make nowadays?
Yeah.
Never.
I don't have a home phone in my house.
I don't think 15% of people have wireline phones in their house. That may turn out to be the way mobile works. It's obviously what we'd call vertically superior. It moves with you. It can take it anywhere. You can't do that with a fixed connection. So that may be the future of communications. I suspect it will be. So saying that we're making wise investments in this is really, to me, kind of puzzling. And the fact that just because that may be true doesn't mean we want to do it right now if it's $200,000 to do it. You can't get a payoff from that. That's losing money.
Yeah. Real quickly, Dr. Bonar, how can we be certain not to double or triple build internet services to the same urban locations in order to ensure that rural areas, like I mentioned, 3rd Congressional District of South Carolina, get the service they need?
Right. Well, as I said before, I think there's less duplicative funding than we think there might be in terms of what we've been able to find in our work. Programs serve similar areas, but they may not be serving the exact same locations. And so we do have some controls in place, and agencies are paying attention to that particular fact. In fact, most of the coordination the agencies do is about trying to avoid that kind of duplication. I would just mention in terms of the role of the private sector and the government, the private sector is still building out infrastructure. They're the main providers of internet infrastructure everywhere. And the high-cost program and other federal programs are really trying to incentivize those companies to extend service to those areas where they really don't have an economic incentive to do so. So just to mention that.